Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sandy Allnock. I'm an artist and I just came in from the rain. It is pouring buckets outside and I'm wearing my old paint covered t-shirt because I went to my life drawing group and yeah, it's pouring buckets. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about watercolor. I have been working my way through my own 30 Days to More Confident watercolor class. I talked about that a few weeks ago, and a bunch of us are doing that at Art Venture. You're welcome to join us. No need to start on day one. You can start day one on day 13 if you would like. That class is still on sale, so links in the doobly-doo if you want to join us for 30 Days to More Confident watercolor sketching. Anyway, the reason I wanted to come to you today was to show you the paintings that I've done for the first 12 days and talk about some things I have learned in just 12 days. So let's get started and chat about all that, shall we? And we'll paint some daisies. The first lesson I learned was actually one for me, the instructor, and I owe some of you an apology who didn't like what I did. My original plan was to do something for me because I wanted to learn some things and to share some of that with the students. And my whole big idea was that I would go and look for photos that are similar to the painting that was done in the lesson. Paint it larger, so I'm doing 1/8 sheets instead of postcards, and try to provide some step out photos along the way. And that did not turn out to be a great plan. For one, I spent way too much time trying to find the reference photos. I mean, hours per painting trying to find something that matched the lesson. Number two, I didn't do any video, which meant that there were people unhappy that I didn't. And not that they were mean. People said things like, "Oh, I miss hearing your voice explaining everything to me. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to paint that without getting to see you do it." And then a couple of times I was just in my own head while I was painting and forgot to take pictures along the way. And oh goodness, I started realizing that as an instructor, I was providing content without full explanation of anything. I am sorry for frustrating a number of you. So I am going back to just repainting them larger. It's one of the things I've wanted to learn is how to paint intermediate sized flowers. And what do I mean by that? The postcards in the class are all small. So a little squiggle, a little dot here and there can often represent a flower, and I'm totally comfortable doing that in my sketching. My room is getting darker, by the way. It's getting darker and darker outside as the rain really settles in. I'm going to try to get this done before it does. I have painted large flowers as well. Totally comfortable painting large flowers. I'm not someone who loves painting flowers, but I know one of the reasons that I don't love it is because I haven't really developed a style for intermediate size flowers, like the ones that you're going to see in this video for these 8 sheet paintings that I'm creating. So I'm going to show you the lesson painting, the one on a postcard, and I'm also going to show you my painting that I did now. Not only are you going to see a size difference and a quality difference, you're going to see an experiential difference. And I hope that that's helpful and encouraging to you that even this bonehead can learn more about watercolor. So the day one painting is 3 pots. And this was the first week when I was out looking for photos and I found one that had 3 pots on it. And I showed you on YouTube how to paint the 3 pots in the background with the lines and everything behind it. And then in the class, I included video of painting the plants that are in them. So there is video for that. But then day 2, I took the painting that was done in the lesson as a sketch on remember this is like a 4x6 postcard, and I created a new painting. This is an 1/8 sheet, which is about 7.5 by 11, I think, something like that. and I found a photograph that had a lovely cacophony of flowers, and there's those ones in the background that I painted right over top of the background color that I included. But I did go back and pull in that little napkin thing, placemat underneath of the basket, just to kind of reflect some things that were done over there and show a different way to approach it. On day 2, we had a brick floor along with a bucket of beautiful yellow flowers. And I found 2 photos to combine into this. And of course, I didn't explain anything about how to combine photos. And I worked on the flowers in the bucket and also a different technique for the floor. I did put some step out photos in there, and I saw a number of people try it, but I will do a demonstration in my next video of that flooring, just so you can get an idea how to create that. Each lesson builds in complexity, so now we started looking in lesson 4 at putting a bunch of different kinds of flowers and forms into one bowl. And I found a bowl that had that in there. I decided, like a silly person, to include the doorway that was behind it and everything. That confused a lot of people. How to paint glass. Didn't talk about that. I'm sorry. But I did start to develop some technique in those leaves on the right-hand side that I started to like, and I thought I want to explore that kind of simplicity more. In lesson 5, we talked about creating pots of flowers, but putting them on stairs. And here the stairs are all from a low perspective, so you don't see any depth on them. The only depth is indicated by the shadows and the way that they're cast onto the stairs. So when I was looking for stair photos, this is what I found that inspired me. I was excited to try this, and it was incredibly complicated. I tried explaining some of the perspective stuff going on in here, but it was difficult in that really tiny format of using just a carousel of slides. So I didn't do a great job of that, but it was a fun painting to do, even if it was really complex. Day 6 saw some really big pots, a little bit more brick on the ground, lots of flowers and greens and things going on. And in looking for blue pots, I was trying to find something close-ish. I ended up kind of closing in 2 pots closer to each other that were separate in a photo, and then putting my own plants in them by looking at other photos. And then I tried one of the backgrounds in there. I kind of have some shadow issues here that I haven't completely worked out. I don't know if I'm going to go back and rework those, but I did love my pots, and I loved the way that I rendered the greens. But again, I didn't shoot a video to show anybody how to do any of that. So if you're not able to look at something and figure it out, I was of no help to you on that. Next up was a barrel of flowers at the edge of a patio or something with some rocks alongside it and just some generic greens behind. And this one I couldn't find a photo for again, so I combined 2 photos, one for the barrel and one for the rocks. And the rocks had all this kind of tropical stuff in the background. So I combined them. I had to change the perspective on the barrel to be lower so it would match the perspective on the rocks that I found. And then I found I just had to simplify everything in the background because it was too much stuff, too much detail, and that stuff was not as important as the flowers themselves. So I simplified it to try to make the barrel of flowers the hero in the painting. The flowers in this basket actually started kind of bringing me around to where I wanted to start pursuing more of my simple flowers, because I liked the simplicity of some of these flowers, just a little shape with a dot in the middle of them. And doing it larger, I could actually scale that dot differently. I started playing with the shadows and how to make the flowers look like they were turning in different directions. And I was super tickled with the flowers in this one. Had some other issues with other things, but this got me going in the direction I'd like to head with my watercolor flower paintings so that I can simplify things more. Instead of trying to paint every leaf, every flower, and getting into a whole lot of little tiny fussy mess like I did on the postcard. After having success on day 8 and being excited about those graphical looking flowers, I got to day 9 and I thought, okay, well, let me try this in a vertical format. And I worked on the rocks first, and I absolutely loved my rocks here. Spent tons of time on them, got some mixed colors in them and all that. I'll be talking about rocks in the next video. But my flowers, oh my goodness. I realized at this moment I didn't know what I was doing with graphical flowers. It's more than just scribble shapes on a larger painting. It can work on a small sketch just great, but in a larger format, I just felt like I made a huge mess out of it. And so not every painting is going to be a success, and that's okay. It's all learning. So then we got to day 10, and this one has another path, curving a different direction, but still some rocks. All of these lessons build on each other throughout class. And I did work on simplifying some of the flowers. Those ones on the left were much more like the flowers from day 8, which is what I was trying for. I tried something a little bit simpler for the red flowers, but again, I was still stuck with those tall ones on the left, those purple ones, and I need to spend more time in my sketchbook working on those kinds of flowers in particular. By day 11 and 12, I was starting to feel like I was more in the groove of figuring out what style I wanted to keep trying with flowers. And this painting offered an amazing challenge because look at all those flowers on either side of this path with all these steps in it. So I started by painting the steps. I simplified the trees in the distance and, even brought in some blues to create some shadow color and started working on the daisies on the left in the way that I'm going to show you in this video. And some of the other flowers leave a little bit to be desired, but I think I've got a bit of a direction that I want to head with this because I'm liking where this is going. It's much simpler, much less fussy, hard to do in tiny postcard size, but works much better for a large format. When it came to the painting for day 12, I decided to make some changes here. For the rock wall, I wanted to make it a bit bigger, a little bit more detailed, because I love painting rocks. I'm weird that way. I wanted to bring in the daisies since I'd made some progress with them the day before. But boy, did I get complex. I suddenly just put a whole lot in there. I added extra rocks in front of the rock wall. There's a gajillion flowers in there that probably weren't needed. I could have enlarged some of the ones on the left and right and had fewer of them. The tall orangey flowers, I don't know what possessed me to bring those in. But there's still a lot I loved about this. There's just something that felt light and airy as opposed to the postcard that felt a little bit more dark. And I did enjoy the process here because I started feeling like I understood what I was doing with the daisies. I hope I'm going to be able to explain it. But yeah, that's where I am on day 12. Each of this year's paintings are available for sale on my fine art website. There's a link in the doobly-doo down below. I've priced them pretty low, and I actually just put up a coupon code because I haven't sold anything in a really long time, and it's making me sad. So I'm hoping that giving good discounts on these particular paintings will inspire you to maybe purchase a little piece of my art. But let's look at how I painted the daisies in 2 of these paintings. So this is a closer look at the kind of section that I'm going to show you today for the daisy flowers. I really loved the ones on the left especially. I felt like I was starting to get into the zone at that time. Got a little overly excited over there on the right-hand side. Needed a few less rocks as well. But we're going to look at just the daisies here. On the left is my practice that I had done before that painting because I wanted to see what it would be like to paint them in this way with just some simplified, almost graphic shapes. And I'm going to try different colors here just because why not? Why paint the same thing again? And so I'm starting with a yellow that has a bit of green in it because my water is very green. By the time I got to this video and started sketching this, I'm using my silver point brush, which is a mop brush from Vinci. I have links in the doobly-doo for all the supplies I used, by the way. And I'm just painting the yellow at the top, leaving some whites, leaving some white flowers up there. And notice that I'm not painting around every flower to try to make it look like a flower. I'm just trying to paint them so that there's white spots in there. because I don't want to have to go in with gouache. I try to avoid that if at all possible, because gouache doesn't end up looking like watercolor. It looks like a gouache flower on top of watercolor, which is doable, but it's a little better if you can figure out how to do it. So I'm creating different size blobs. I've added just a little bit of green to that water so it starts to melt into the yellow, but also then carries down to the bottom. Now I am using a little bit of a cobalt turquoise to make the green when I mixed it with the yellow. So that's going to give it a different color flavor, because I wanted to see what would happen if it was something a little bit brighter rather than the more sap green kind of colors on the left-hand side. So just going to finish out this section, trying to make my flowers uneven because they're not going to grow in rows or be in every square inch of the green. There's going to be plenty of areas for green leaves to come through. And then just tapped off a little of the excess up there at the top and at the bottom so that I get a very pale color. With watercolor, I start with my lightest and I just start building my darks, kind of carving them in to push the darks into the painting and letting the lighter colors show in between. So there's me adding some sap green with that little cobalt turquoise at the top. So it's just a little brighter than a sap green. So I've just got a little zing added to it. Think of it as a little bit of seasoning. And then I'm going to choose some flowers to start adding some depth behind. So basically this is negative painting. And the only place I'm worried about trying to adjust my flower shapes at this point is if there's like a big pointy thing hanging off of one. I can cut that off quite easily with this color, but I wanted some lighter color, so I dipped my brush into the water so I could start fading this color off a little bit, leaving some green in it, then rinsing it again to be painting with water so that it starts melting up into that yellow up above. Because I wanted to have some places where I can do both negative and positive painting for this little cluster of flowers. So I can dip back into the heavier paint. And this is not very heavy. It's, kind of milky consistency. And I'm just painting around some of the flowers. But be careful that you're not trying to paint a circle around each one of your white spots. That's just going to look like you've outlined your flowers. And nobody needs that when you're talking flowers. So I'm trying to put around one side a little darker pigment, around another side a bit of the lighter, kind of water wash around it, and then other places just letting some of the color from underneath be the border of it. And know that at this point you can still have more layers to go back in, so I'm looking more like squinting at it to see what the overall shape of this green mass is, because I'm not trying to worry about the flower shapes as much as I am the flow of all of it going across the entire blob of color, so that it looks very natural. And then we'll start pushing more darks in once that's done. I am working up and down. I'm working in the top section and the bottom section so I don't have any areas that sit too long and get dry. Because when you've got a dry edge, that's going to make a dry edge that you can't move. So I want to keep it wet. So I'm, working on both sides at the same time. You could just start at the bottom and work your way to the top, or vice versa. But I find working out from the middle helps me get my values a little bit better. And then I'm adding some new Gamboge just to the centers. Now, notice I am not putting round dots in every center. I'm using a nice big number 8 brush and just putting blobs in there. That's going to help the flowers look and feel a little more graphic, a little more wonky, and not so absolutely perfect, because that's what I want to try to avoid in my flower paintings. I don't want to try to paint them in a way that I would draw them with pencils, because that's one of the things that watercolor does so much more beautifully is just it's looser, it's fresher, it doesn't feel like you've labored over it. And painting every single petal or outlining every scallop on every flower, that's what happens when it looks labored. That's where some of my flowers, when I got really tiny with them, got really labored, and I want to not do much of that. So I'm going to be practicing that all month. As we do more of these flowers, I'm going to start practicing some of those long, tall flowers because I do love them, but I got to figure out how to render them. I need to go look at some of my favorite flower painters and see how they handle them. And if there's something that I can learn from that and then adapt to my style. Because I want to try to see if this could become my style, because I want something simpler. The other paintings that I've had and that I've put in my shop and everything, you can go look at them to see how my other style works. Like when I painted the boats a few months ago, that painting just sung. It was so simple. It didn't feel over-labored with lots and lots of little fussy things. That one in particular had all kinds of beautiful, simple shapes. And that's what I need to start working on in anything that's got flowers in it. And maybe if I can figure out how I want to do that in my paintings, which doesn't have to be how you want to do it in yours. If I can figure out how to do that in my paintings, I think I will enjoy painting my landscapes that have floral elements in them a whole lot better. Because a lot of times I just pick things with trees because I enjoy trees much more. I've got a tree style that I enjoy painting quite a bit, and I just haven't found anything for watercolor flowers until I started playing around with this. So I put thicker, darker pigment in here to start making some negative painting around the shapes of the flowers and around some of the stems. And then I went with even thicker and darker. And, you can play around with what colors are going to work for you. I'm just adding various amounts of sap green and a little bit of that cobalt turquoise if I want it brighter. And when I get to really darks, I might add a little tiny dollop of Paynes blue gray in there. But notice I'm carving into a few of the shapes of a few flowers, but not every scallop. Sometimes it's just like 2 scallops on one side or another. And that's it, because they read as flowers anyway. And that's what I want in that loose, fresh look that watercolor can have. And I can get that with other subjects. I just have struggled so much with these intermediate sized flowers. I'm good with like little tiny itty bitty ones in sketches when I go out and sketch in town and somebody's got a flower basket. That I can totally handle, or focusing on just one flower. But boy, is it just a challenge for me to figure out how to simplify my flowers when I'm talking about intermediate sized types of flowers. So I'm using, as I go into, deeper and deeper color, I'm also getting smaller with my brushes. I don't often switch down to a number 2, but here I am because this is a small sketch. But I would kind of like to do a really large painting at some point, bigger than an 1/8 sheet at some point with flowers, and see what happens when the flowers get even bigger. And who knows, maybe I'll do that this month too, but I want to get a lot of practice in. So trying to stay with 1/8 sheet paintings that I can handle getting done, along with everything else that I need to get done, because it's been a really busy time since I've come back from medical illness and stuff, and trying to get my life back in order. Just been swamped with things, and 1/8 sheet sizes seem to be a little bit easier for me to handle right now, along with getting everything else done, as in videos like this. But this was nice practice to be able to play around in my sketchbook. And as I said, my next video is going to be those rocks, the rock walls, that kind of thing, rock floors, brick floors, and how to get those different kinds of rocks next to each other to start to blend and look like they belong together. So I hope that that's going to be something that you'll be interested in as well. There are a number of, bricks, rocks, other, like paths and things. And as the class goes on, you'll see more of that in the future lessons as well, because I just really focused at the time that I was creating that class on different kinds of places where you might see beautiful gardens. So this is the addition of shadows. And even though they're white flowers, if you put just a little bit of blue shadow, and I'm not being careful about it, I'm not being religious about left or right light source or anything, because if a flower is turned in a particular way, it could actually start to kind of curl around a different direction, and the shadow can be on the other side. And putting them in different places actually makes your flowers look all kind of kittywampus. They're all leaning different directions. And if you get too much color on there, if your paint is really nice and thin, you can just dab it off with a paper towel, baby wipe, or something to lift that color up and make it a little bit softer. Now, I did decide to try to see just what would happen if I added just a tiny bit of Quin Rose into my yellow puddle and see what would happen there. Try to add just a little bit of shadow. And on the centers of these, I am adding them on the left just to try to keep a little bit of a light source there and put a bit of shading on the centers. Not sure if it helped or not, but you can add a little something like that, but I'm not being real careful with it. Before I go, I have 2 favors to ask. One is, if you're not subscribed, why not? Please do subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you part of the community here. And number 2, would you hit the like button before you go? I always forget to ask you that, and I know it's silly to ask for it, but if you got something out of this video, please hit that like button. It means a lot to the channel because I want to get my videos out to more artists so I can help more people. And if you're interested in joining us for the rest of the 30 Days to More Confident watercolor sketching, remember, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be starting on day 1 with everybody else because we're all at different places. Everybody's going at their own pace, and you can join in anytime. Links in the doobly-doo. Class is still on sale. So I will see you again in a couple days with some new creativity. Take care. Bye-bye.